I make the call every year, same date, same time, November 14th, 9 p.m. He answers. I say nothing. The line stays open for 30 seconds, sometimes 40. Then I hang up. I've been doing this for 7 years. I don't know if he knows it's me. Don't know if he's told anyone. Don't know if it frightens him or if he's simply confused. I don't need to know. The calls aren't revenge, aren't threats, aren't demands for confession or apology. There's something else, something I can't quite name. They are the only form of justice I've been able to claim. People ask sometimes what happened. When I mention carefully, vaguely, that I had a difficult childhood, that there were things, incidents, they want details, want to understand, wants to categorize what I experienced so they can decide how to react. I've learned not to give them what they want. Because what happened doesn't fit cleanly into the boxes people need. Doesn't sound dramatic enough to warrant the weight it carries. Doesn't provide a clear villain and obvious harm that makes people comfortable saying that was wrong. So I've learned to speak around it, to use words that sound calm, reasonable, reserved. It was complicated. Things happened that shouldn't have. I've made peace with it. None of these things are true, but they are easier than the truth. The truth is this. When I was 8 years old, a man everyone trusted hurt me. Not once, not accidentally, not in a way that could be misunderstood. Repeatedly, deliberately, carefully. For 3 years. And when I finally told adults what was happening, they chose not to believe me. Not because they thought I was lying, but because believing me would cost them something. Would disrupt their community, their church, their comfortable certainty that good men don't do such things. So they didn't believe me. and I learned what I was worth. I tried to explain it once as an adult at a dinner party. The conversation had turned to childhood, to memories, to formative experiences. Someone asked if I'd had a happy childhood. I said, mostly no. They laughed, thought I was being dramatic, self-depreciating. I said I was abused by a family friend for 3 years. I told adults nothing happened. The table went quiet. Someone changed the subject. Later, the host pulled me aside, said I'd made people uncomfortable, that maybe I should process that privately instead of bringing it up in social settings. I apologized, said I wouldn't mention it again, kept my word. What adults hear when I tell them is not what I'm saying. They hear something bad happened, but it's over now. They hear I've healed, I've moved on, I'm fine. They hear, don't worry, this won't require anything from you. What I'm actually saying is different. I'm saying this happened. It was real. It shaped everything about who I became. And no one stopped it. No one believed me. No one chose me over their comforts. But that version doesn't fit in social settings. Doesn't make people feel okay. So I've learned to translate, to soften, to lie. The first memory I have of him is ordinary. He was at our house, visiting my parents, talking about church business, community things. I was in the living room, playing, being quiet, the way children learn to be when adults are talking. He looked at me, smiled, said something kind. My mother smiled back, said I was shy, said I'd warm up eventually. He said he was patient. I remember that, the word patient. Like I was something to wait for, to work on, to win over. His name is David. He was my parents' friend, part of their church community, successful, generous, respected, owned a business, donated to missions, led Bible studies. Everyone loved him, trusted him, wanted to be near him, including my parents. They were honored when he took an interest in our family, when he'd invite us to dinner, when he'd offer to watch me so they could have date nights. They never questioned it. Never thought it was strange that a single man in his 40s wanted to spend so much time with their 8-year-old daughter. They thought it was kindness, thought he was lonely, thought he enjoyed having a child around. Thought wrong. I told my mother first. I was 11. The abuse had been happening for 3 years. I didn't have the words for what he was doing, didn't understand it fully. Just knew it felt wrong, made me feel sick, made me want to hide. I said, "Mom, I don't like going to Mr. David's house anymore." She was cooking dinner. Didn't look up. Why not? He does things that make me uncomfortable. What things? I tried to explain. Used the words I heard. Described what I could. She stopped cooking. Finally looked at me. "Are you sure you're not misunderstanding? Maybe he was just being affectionate. Maybe you're being too sensitive." "I'm not. David is a good man, a godly man. He wouldn't do something like that. You must have misunderstood." I didn't misunderstand. Enough. We are not talking about this anymore. And you're not going to mention this to anyone else. Do you understand? David has been good to this family. We are not going to repay him with false accusations. I understood. Understood that truth had a price, and I couldn't afford it. Nothing changed after that conversation. I still went to his house, still spent time alone with him, still endured what he did, because my mother decided it wasn't happening. And if it wasn't happening, there was nothing to protect me from. The abuse continued for another year, then stopped, not because someone intervened, not because he felt guilty, but because I got older, became less interesting to him. He moved on, found other children, other families, other opportunities. And I carried what he had done in silence, because speaking had already failed. Silence, at least, cost nothing more. I grew up in that community, saw him at church, at community events, at gatherings my parents attended. He was always kind to me, always polite, always appropriate in public, like nothing had happened. Like the years of abuse were a dream I had invented. My parents never mentioned our conversation, never asked if I was okay, never questioned why I avoided him. They just pretended. All of us pretended. And the lie required no maintenance. It simply existed, unspoken, unchallenged, comfortable. There was a potluck after service one Sunday. I was 13. Standing near the dessert table with a paper plate. David across the room, talking to the pastor, to my father, to other men. He laughed at something, genuine, warm. Put his hand on my father's shoulder, a gesture of friendship, of belonging. My father laughed too. I watched them, two men, comfortable, connected, One of them knew what the other had done to me. One of them had decided it didn't matter. I ate my dessert, threw away the plate, went to sit in the car. Nobody noticed I'd left. I started doubting myself around 14. Started thinking maybe my mother was right. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe what happened wasn't what I remembered. Because if it was real, if it was as bad as I remembered, someone would have done something. Someone would have believed me, protected me, stopped him. But no one did. So maybe it wasn't real. Maybe I was dramatic, sensitive, confused. Maybe I was the problem. I was 19 when I learned about the other girl. I was 19 when I learned about the other girl Her name was Emma. She was 16, went to our church. I heard from a friend, quietly, carefully, that Emma had told her parents something about David, about things he had done, about abuse. Her parents didn't believe her either. Said she was acting out, seeking attention, making things up. Said David was a respected member of the community, that accusations like that could ruin his life, that she needed to stop lying. She stopped, just like I heard. Learning about Emma changed something. Not everything, not enough, but something. Because suddenly, I wasn't alone, wasn't confused, wasn't making it up. There was a pattern, a method, a predator who knew exactly how to choose families that wouldn't believe their children, wouldn't question his motives, wouldn't risk their reputation to protect someone small. The story made sense in a way I hadn't allowed before. I stopped doubting myself. I started understanding how protection works. It's not a conspiracy, not a coordinated effort, not people actively choosing to shield abusers. It's simpler than that. It's comfort, familiarity, convenience. David was wealthy, generous, connected. He gave money to the church, helped families in need, showed up, participated, belonged. Believing me, believing Emma would mean losing that. Would mean admitting they had been wrong about him, had invited danger into their community, had failed to protect children they claimed to love. Would mean discomfort, shame, responsibility. So they chose not to believe. Not because they hated us, but because believing him cost them less. I reported it when I was 25, 14 years after it ended, 17 years after it started. I thought maybe time would make it clearer, would give me credibility, would make adults take me seriously. I was wrong. The police were kind, professional, careful. They took my statement, asked questions, wrote everything down, then explained why nothing could be done. The abuse occurred when you were a minor. That was 17 years ago. The statute of limitations has passed. Even if it hadn't, cases like this, historical abuse, no physical evidence, single witness, are extremely difficult to prosecute. Then we can't use her testimony, can't pursue a pattern without multiple formal complaints. So he's just. He gets away with it. The detective looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. The system has limits. This is one of them. I sat in my car afterward, in the police station parking lot. Understood something I'd been avoiding. It wasn't failing. It simply wasn't built for people like me. Not for children who tell and aren't believed. Not for adults reporting harm that's already old. Not for cases without evidence, without multiple witnesses, without perfect victims. The system had worked exactly as it was supposed to. The system had worked exactly as it was supposed to. Just not for me. There was no verdict to grieve, no outcome to process. Just a quiet understanding that justice, the kind I'd imagined, would never come. No trial, no exposure, no moment where he'd had to face what he had done. He'd continue living, working, belonging, and had carried the weight alone. I learned he had a daughter when I was 28. Saw the announcement on social media. Birth announcement, photos, pride. A daughter. The knowledge sat heavy in my chest. Not because I thought he had hurt her, though the possibility existed, cold and undeniable. But because I realized he had moved forward, built a life, had a family. While I was here, still stuck, still carrying what he had done, like a stone I couldn't put down. I started carrying guilt that wasn't mine, Guilt that I hadn't tried harder, hadn't found Emma, hadn't reported sooner, hadn't done something, anything that might have stopped him. Logically, I knew the guilt didn't belong to me. I was a child. I told adults. They chose not to act. But logic doesn't carry much weight against guilt. And no one else was holding it. So I did. I stopped imagining public reckoning around 29. Stop fantasizing about exposure, about him being confronted, about everyone finally knowing what he was. The fantasy had sustained me for years, had felt like a plan, like eventual justice. But it dissolved quietly, without drama. Because I realized exposure wouldn't change anything. The people who didn't believe me then wouldn't believe me now. And even if they did, even if everyone knew, he'll still be free, still be living, still be protected by time and systems, and the simple fact that some harm is too old to prosecute. Exposure wasn't justice. It was just another form of hoping someone else would fix what they had already decided to ignore. When I stopped waiting for someone else to fix it, I didn't know what came next. I just knew something had to change. The first call happened without planning. I was 31, November 14, 20 years since the abuse ended. I looked up his number, found it easily, publicly listed. Called. He answered. I said nothing. Just listened to him say hello. Heard his voice, the same voice that had said patient when I was 8. He said hello again, then waited. I waited too. 30 seconds, maybe 40, then hung up. Sat on my couch, hands shaking, heart racing. I didn't know what had just done. Didn't know why I had done it. Just knew something had shifted. The calls weren't threats. I never spoke, never breathed heavily, never played music or made noise. Just silence. Just presence. Just the quiet knowledge that I was there, that I remembered, that I hadn't disappeared the way he had expected. I didn't do it often, just once a year, same dates, the anniversary of the last time he touched me. Sometimes I'd speak, briefly, not my name, not accusations, not demands, just phrases, words borrowed from his world. Do you remember? God knows. 21 years. Simple statements, unfinished, ambiguous. I never explained, never clarified, never gave him enough to report or trace or dismiss. Just left him with the discomfort of not knowing. The same discomfort I'd lived with for decades. I understood it wasn't noble. I didn't try to make it noble. Didn't ask permission. Didn't seek validation. Just did it. Year after year after year. The calls didn't fix anything. Didn't change the past. Didn't protect his daughter. Didn't bring Emma peace. Didn't undo what he did or make me whole again. I found no illusion of control, no belief that the calls mattered in any measurable way. They were small, private, probably ineffective, but they were mine. What changed wasn't external. Nothing in the world shifted. No one knew. No systems reformed. No justice arrived. What changed? What changed was internal. I stopped carrying the lie alone. For years, I'd held his secrets, had let the silence protect him, had absorbed the shame that would have been his. The calls were my refusal to do that anymore. Not loudly, not publicly, not in ways that required anyone to act. Just quietly, privately, between him and me. A refusal. I accepted something around year 5 of the calls. Accepted that truth doesn't need permission to exist. for years, had waited for someone to validate what happened, to say, yes, that was real, that was wrong, you were hurt. But validation never came. And I realized it didn't need to. The truth existed, whether people acknowledged it or not, whether systems addressed it or not, whether he admitted it or not. It existed because I remembered it, because I refused to deny it, because I held it without permission. That was enough. I'm 38 now. I sit on my couch every November with my phone in my hand, not shaking anymore, not hoping, just there. The calls continue. November 14th, 9 p.m. every year. Sometimes he answers, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he stays on the line. Sometimes he hangs up immediately. I don't know what he thinks, what he tells himself, whether he knows it's me. I don't need to know. People would call this revenge, call it harassment, call it wrong. Maybe it is. But it's also the only form of justice I have access to. Not the justice I wanted, not the justice I deserved, not the justice the system promised and failed to deliver. Just this. A yearly phone call, a moment of silence, a reminder that I remember, that I'm still here, still carrying what he did, still refusing to let it disappear into the comfortable silence that protected him. The harm is permanent. It doesn't heal cleanly. It doesn't resolve. I understand that now. Accept it. But I also understand something else. Nothing had malfunctioned. I just wasn't who the system was meant to hold. And when institutions fail, you are left with what you can do yourself. Not exposure, not vindication, not the clean justice everyone imagines. just the quiet act of refusing to carry someone else's lie. Of choosing private truth over public comforts. Of calling once a year and saying nothing. Because silence protected him for decades. And now silence reminds him that I'm still here. That I remember that some things don't disappear just because people chose not to see them. This is long justice. Not loud, not validated, not approved. Just mine. It's enough. This story was written by a woman who lived it. I didn't change her words. I didn't soften them. I just read them so they wouldn't disappear. If you recognize yourself in this story, you are not weak and you are not imagining it. Some harm survives because silence is cheaper than truth. Some justice exists without permission. This is quiet truths. Long justice.